Welcome to another exciting episode of Player Profiler News Primetime. I'm your host, Mike Lindberg. You can find me at FFCanuck99, and joining me today, as ever insightful and always, my co-host, Jeremiah Retzlaff. You can find him at Coach Retzlaff1 on the Twitter machine or X. We've got a jam-packed show for you covering the latest in NFL news, rapid-fire trade talks, and injury updates, and deep dives into your key matchups from Andy Dalton's revival in Carolina, our bullish and bearish player picks, and we're going to give you insights on the game tonight, the latter game, because we know there's a game going on right now. So buckle up and let's dive into the action. Let's go. Well, I mean, most people thought that, Andy Dalton would come in and give this Carolina Panthers team a little bit of a boost to their playmakers, but wow, holy shooty. That was insane what Andy Dalton brought into this team. And I don't know if that just pretty much is the nail in the coffin for Bryce Young, but let's get into this, Jeremiah. I want to get your take on this situation here in Carolina that's ever evolving.
Well, some could say that it is Jover for Bryce Young. The Carolina Panthers were road underdogs and went into Las Vegas. They won outright, dog walked them 36-22. The big story prior to the game was changing of the starting quarterback from Bryce Young to veteran Andy Dalton. The Panthers had been outscored 73-13 in their first two games, both losses outright. 14-year veteran Andy Dalton may be the revival quarterback for Dave Canales, as he has worked with, remember, Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield. Andy Dalton went 26 of 37 in passing, 319 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns. We reported on the news desk the impact of Andy Dalton prior to the game. A guy who can realize simply the floor play of the Panthers' skill position players. We saw a lot of bullish nature, but we just want to get a floor. We were talking about mediocrity won't be accepted. That's what David Tepper had said. Can we just get some mediocrity? That's what we want. It's been basement level bad. So the preseason thesis of the Panthers run game, that came to fruition. Chuba Hubbard, I talked about him all summer. He had 21 carries, 114 rushing yards on the ground. And he went for 5 receptions, 55 yards, and a receiving touchdown. Chuba Hubbard, 27.9 PPR points on the day, and he had more meat on the bone, but the Panthers decided to give some to Miles Sanders. I chirped about him a little bit in the preseason for those late best ball shares. So things are looking up in Carolina on the ground game. For the receiving game, the most sexy player that they have on the team, Diontae Johnson, for your hopes, for your fantasy football, living in the 7th round all through the summer. Diontae Johnson had, and he came to life, 8 receptions, 122 yards, a touchdown on 14 targets. Deontay's always been a PPR machine. Adam Thielen went 3 receptions, 40 yards, and a touchdown, and he looked like he just collapsed right there on the field. He got hurt. We find out that it's his hamstring. We'll speak to that a little bit later. This has always been the play and what we hope for from the Carolina Panthers. However, we didn't know the improvement would show with Andy Dalton at the helm. So preseason, we thought we were going to get something out of Bryce Young. In Dynasty Superflex, I'm a huge proponent on the any quarterback on a 53 method, which Scott Connor over at DD Fantasy Football, he's big on that, just like he is any running back on a 53. Andy Dalton came through big as he was one of the top, I think he's in the top 3 right now for quarterbacks entering tonight. Prior to the game, you could get a 3rd round rookie pick for Andy Dalton just off of those starts. The potential coming into week 3. Now with vividness bias from such a good performance, Andy Dalton just bought himself multiple weeks of playing regardless of record. So let's take a look. Next 5 games, the Panthers get the Bengals at home, Bears on the road, Falcons at home, and the Commanders on the road, followed by the Broncos on the road. So between now and this next stretch of games, you will have in Dynasty the opportunity and ability to draw 2nd round picks from league mates. It's very reactionary. It's very quick, but that's what's going on with the Carolina Panthers. Mike, would you ever expect this from Carolina?
Oh, I don't know. At this stage of the game, anything is possible with the Carolina Panthers after their debacle last year with the draft and what they were left with here. And now it's like, so long, Bryce Young. I mean, it just seems like, yeah, if Andy Dalton can bring this out in the team, there is some huge doubts there. So, I mean, we have a lot of quick hitters here today. I'm going to beam through these new injuries, and then in my next segment, we'll kind of hit base on some of the older injuries that are floating around the league right now. And after there was an injury apocalypse in week 2, while week 3 brings some more injuries to the slate here. Sam Laporta, he was being carted off. It would look like a scary ankle injury. We're all hoping for the best. Sam Laporta was in and out of that game, as you saw, for the Detroit Lions when they faced the Arizona Cardinals. He missed some time. If he does miss time, these ankle injuries, depending if it's a high ankle sprain or not, especially with this tight end position, it's not like a running back. For a wide receiver and stuff like that, it might take a little bit more time. They might have to tape it up. So we'll see what happens with Laporta. If it's a high ankle sprain, I would expect him to maybe miss a game or two here. And that would mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, who, saw a slower game this week because they didn't really need him too much, but you're going to see an increased targets there. Well, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery will, likely shoulder more of the offensive load like they've been doing. And another tight end here that got banged up. And I'm going to get your opinion after I talk about Trey McBride here, Jeremiah, on this tight end situation in the league and how dire straits it is. And now McBride facing a concussion, that raises concerns about his availability for week 4, making his status very uncertain. If he can't go, I'd expect Marvin Harrison to see a spike in targets, while Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch will also benefit from expanding in the passing game. Michael Wilson had a better game in week 3 here. We saw him emerge as one of the top target getters for the Cardinals, but Trey McBride, I think it's going to be hard for him to pass concussion protocol in time for him to suit up this weekend. It's just the new reality of the league right now. They're being a little bit more safe, as we found out last year. But as far as this tight end, landscape goes here, Jeremiah, what's your initial thoughts on it? And are we in trouble here? Because I know that the first couple of weeks generally have a slow start to tight end landscape, and then it tends to pick up. Because these guys take a little bit more time to get adjusted with the offenses and get them in rhythm. They try to stay with the basics before they kind of integrate these tight ends. But now I think it's time. But now they're all banged up. So what do we do?
Well, you got to think about it. It's more of a macro trend. Last year, I saw a shift in the tight end landscape affecting how we would draft into 2024. Of course, we saw the hyperinflation of Sam Laporta, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, who still plays tonight. Maybe there's some hope. Please help us if you're listening, Dalton Kincaid. We've had Evan Ingram get hurt. Travis Kelce, he kind of looks like when he makes a catch, he looks like he's thinking, man, I really didn't take this too seriously. I kind of dumped on my training for a bit, and it's catching up to me right now. I think long-term, middle to late of the season, Travis Kelce can get back into that game shape. I would just say what's happening is this compression of the tight end position of just being dusty right now, not paying off at ADP, whether it be in your startups values or redraft and best ball. It's okay, only from the standpoint of you have other people who have paid the toll, paid the price for these elite tight ends. If Kyle Pitts lands in the end zone with that reach, and if was a fifth, we understand that. But if Kyle Pitts gets in the end zone, we're a little bit more bullish on those Kyle Pitts shares. Dallas Goedert had a huge game this week. I just look at it as right now what's shifting in my prediction into next year in a macro trend is that the running back position will boost up. We're having a dead cat bounce with the running back position. Of course, all the hype has been about 2 high safeties and that adjustment to the game. So you're getting the kickoff rules, even that differential. We're seeing more longer kicks be made. The rushing game has taken on more importance. Right now, it's just a brutal injury impact for the tight end position. They get hit from, it's like DDR, they get hit from every single angle. It's a volatile, very tough position. You don't have to account for, sometimes if you have the boundary to your back as a receiver, you don't have to worry about a hit coming from that direction. Well, with tight end, it can come from every which way. It's a very tough scene early, but you watch, when you look into your leagues and look at the tight end landscape, you're really not as far behind from other people or most people, just for the fact that it is so bad early on at tight end. I think it'll correct, but the payoff right now is definitely not there. Now, pivoting over, Mike, what do you think of Skylar Thompson? He has a rib injury. Is it Tyler Huntley time? It was already bad without Tua. Just ask those Tyreek Hill managers. So what's your take there?
It's just disappointment after disappointment when you think about the Carolina Panthers have actually scored more points than the Miami Dolphins to this stage of the year. So if that's a stat worth chewing on, I'm going to tell you one there. So that's not very good, and it's not looking any better. But Boyle came in and actually looked a lot better than Skylar Thompson. So if there is optimism, there might be somebody that can move the ball a little bit better. They have to get Tyreek Hill involved if they want to do anything here with that offense. Like they didn't do it, and they struggled mightily. Skylar Thompson did not look good in the pocket, so I think maybe this is a blessing in disguise for this Miami offense. Can't get any worse than what it's been. But it's dire straits here for those Tyreek Hill managers, those Jalen Waddle managers, and even the Devontae Chan managers that are like, we saw what an anemic offense looks like when you don't have a quarterback that can get the ball out fast or can read a defense, and that's what's happening there, unfortunately, in Miami. And another offense here that is losing players, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles. And Smith, Devonta Smith suffered a concussion. It resulted from a questionable hit. It leaves the Eagles receiving core in jeopardy. Without both Smith and potentially A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert's value skyrockets as he'll become the go-to target, highlighted by his recent big plays. Potentially, Jahan Dotson might be used more now. You never know, but I'm looking for Goddard there, and just smash on the run game for those Eagles. They didn't need to have too much in the passing game anyhow with the way Barkley's running the ball right now, and there was a lot of us that were low on Barkley headed into this season, and it could have gone either way, and it's looking like it's the optimal situation for him as long as he can stay healthy. I mean, geez, like he looks better than he's ever had on less carries. He's not needed in the passing game either, and is putting up these prolific numbers. So Barkley to the moon, and he's one of the only players in the first 3 rounds of a draft right now that you can honestly say is actually paying off on that. So what's your thoughts there, Jeremiah?
A salient point on those top 3 round picks paying off. Saquon Barkley, he just has that juice, that buzz, where he's able to get where he needs to go. Very similar to the burst he had, it might sound sacrilege, to his rookie season. A big game for Saquon Barkley, 17 carries, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a long run of 65 yards. In the receiving game, we also had 4 receptions for 9 yards. Nothing too crazy there for Barkley, but he took it on the ground. Dallas Goedert, back to what you had said, 10 receptions on 11 targets, 170 yards. It seems like we get about one big Dallas Goedert game a year, and then he kind of turtle shells, right? But I would just kind of say that with George Kittle, the situation George Kittle is in San Francisco, George Kittle needs an injury or two to have things go his way sometimes to really break it up and open for him, where the offense will run through Deebo, Ayuk, or CMC. Well, take Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta seems to be taking that back seat to Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Of course, the hyper run game between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Low key, Dallas Goedert is emerging and looks like that sort of a player where buried underneath Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, and now, of course, Saquon Barkley, he was an afterthought. Now he gets to emerge. So if there's optimal conditions for Dallas Goedert, I expect this to continue. And maybe he really has been this gem this whole time. It's just that you don't have to polish that rock while you've got other bedrock players all surrounded around you. Now, going back to Carolina, we talked about Adam Thielen with his hamstring getting hurt on that touchdown catch. Deontay Johnson, what's your take on him being the beneficiary in Carolina?
Well, I mean, I was so high on him coming into this season, so him kind of actually coming around here is actually making my like. If there was a silver lining in week 3 for any of my fantasy rosters this week, was a Deontay Johnson coming out and having potentially, I think, his best game of his career. I know it was his highest yards total of his career. So yeah, incredible game by him, incredible game by Andy Dalton, and maybe they'll be a little less prolific this next week with some more tape out now, and they're going to have some stuff on there. But I love what I saw out of that offense, and Chuba Hubbard to the moon. And if there's anybody that's going to benefit from Andy Dalton, and a guy that hasn't even played a snap, and that's Jonathan Brooks, who, if this is what it's going to be like for them, wow, watch out, Jonathan Brooks, because he could be something special if that is how they're going to be utilizing their running back in that offense. So, yeah, let's move on to Justin Herbert. He suffered an ankle injury still. He has, re-injured it. It looks like this thing is a little bit more severe now. And I'm assuming he's going to miss a game or two here, Jeremiah, which isn't good for the situation. Quentin Johnson, J.K. Dobbins is also now comes into question. So some of the situation we're going to have to monitor. They're going home and they are going to be playing a tough Chiefs team this week, coming off a 3-0. They're not playing on all cylinders yet, the Chiefs, but the Chargers are now down their quarterback, and it looks like he might miss some time here. So unfortunate spin of events. And then another quarterback who is undergone an MRI, and it looks like it's not as severe as originally thought for Sam Darnold. So looks like he'll be suiting up again, and what a story he's been. And I don't know. Do the Vikings, if he continues to play like this, is there going to be a question in the future of, what happens? Do they sign him long term? I mean, if the Vikings go on and make a tear here, they're playing the best football I've seen them play since probably back in the Randy Moss days, to be quite honest with you here. Like their defense is playing lights out. Flores has got them playing like nobody's business. And it's just amazing what is happening in Minneapolis. And Sam Darnold is a story here. He's being efficient, and he doesn't even have his number one weapons with him either. Like, if you think about it, yeah, he's got Justin Jefferson, but he's missing TJ Hawkinson. He's missing Jordan Addison, and they're still managing to do this at such a rate. And I think he's quarterback 2 right now. So huge story, Sam Darnold. And yeah, one of the bright spots when you think about what's happening in the league right now with all the injuries going around.
Oh, absolutely. And, you make a good point. Voluminous nature of having Addison and TJ Hawkinson. Sam Darnold has not had that benefit. We will see long-term what happens. I saw somebody chirp about Sam Darnold. Maybe he could go to the Giants. I think maybe Shedeur Sanders would look much better, but that'll be another question for another day. Good hits, Mike, on these injuries. They come up. They're old. They're new. They're still impactful, and there's ripple effects and layers all throughout the season. Now, folks, if you're enjoying the show, don't miss out on more exclusive content. Subscribe to Player Profiler, our YouTube channel at Player Profiler News. Follow us on X at Profiler_NFL. Our website, playerprofiler.com/news. Get all the latest breaking news and its impact on fantasy football. Stay ahead of the game with Player Profiler. Now, I'm just going to pivot into, we had an epic day yesterday with the Rams. They beat the 49ers 27-24. Jauan Jennings and Kyren Williams each have 3 touchdowns in an epic divisional showdown. And if you have Jauan Jennings and or Kyren Williams, these 2 games are just mere entertainment. You most likely have won your matchup and locked it up. What a feeling, right? So with Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey out, the natural expectation was for Brandon Ayuk to have a big day, as well as the near Super Bowl MVP that we spoke to, Jauan Jennings, to get a boost in production. And did he ever? Jauan Jennings went off, 11 receptions, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns on 12 targets. Brandon Ayuk, it may not seem this way, but Brandon Ayuk had 10 targets. A pedestrian, though, 5 for 48, suffering from a case of the drops. The idea was Brandon Ayuk would be done with his rust by now. Week 3, you got to think by now he's got it. This simply was not the case, as Jauan Jennings was the clear alpha. Jordan Mason, he looks like an early season league winner as a late round upside handcuff to CMC. Mason had 19 carries, 77 rush yards to go with 2 receptions for 11 yards. There will be better days for Jordan Mason. You're still plugging him and playing him with confidence. If somebody's got that role locked up, you're putting them in there. The 49ers had control for the duration of the game, and it almost bordered into the week prior where the Rams got dusted against the Cardinals. But the Rams hung in there. Matthew Stafford managed. This is a game management kind of situation. 16 of 25, 221 passing yards, and a touchdown pass. Tutu Atwell led the Rams in receiving as he had 4 catches, 93 yards on 5 targets. So heading into the game, it was just this roulette of waiver wire pickups, stashes, Demarcus Robinson, Jordan Whittington, Tyler Johnson, and it was Tutu Atwell who came out on top. Good luck playing roulette next week with that set of wide receivers. The hero of the day, though, was Kyren Williams. Williams had 24 carries, 89 rush yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. In the receiving game, Kyren went 2 for 27 with another touchdown, totaling 3. 31.6 PPR points made Kyren the RB2 on the week, and we will tabulate that. Of course, we have 2 more games going there. So, Mike, can you deliver us? We've had some highs, some surprises every week. We talk about this is why we come back to the game. We've got new things happening all the time. Let's get a little bit of the old. Can we rehash and re-talk about some of the older injuries and how they're impacting our fantasy football lineups currently?
Yeah, man. I mean, and we talked about this lots in the injury segment, so we're just going to kind of quickly go through, and it's just going to kind of piggyback off your, the 49ers Rams game, because there's some significant injuries that happen to the key players in those situations. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you got CMC out, and now it sounds like he is flying to Europe, Germany to be specific, to get an opinion from a doctor on his tendonitis. So, man, that is not a good discovery on our behalf here for fantasy gamers. Now, for Jordan Mason, wow, this could be the season that we're talking about for him. And wow, this could be a game-changing league winner. If we're talking about this, if this CMC injury is something that we really got to be concerned about longer term. Not looking good here. And the Deebo Samuel situation, like I saw a tweet yesterday, and it was a really funny one. It was like, Brandon Ayuk owes Jauan Jennings $120 million. So it's just like I ended up playing against Jauan Jennings in a couple of my leagues because people were savvy to actually pop him in there, and I got crushed. And you can't do anything about that when that type of situation happens. And then we knew there was going to be a wide receiver that was going to go off in that game for the 49ers. They just had the wrong one pegged, and you could have had Jauan Jennings in your lineups, folks. But yeah, the Cooper Kupp situation still evolving here. Like you said, Tutu Atwell was the guy that emerged in that offense, and we're going to see probably more of this revolving door of a more balanced attack, especially with how banged up that Rams defense is. If they can kind of slow the game down, I'm willing to bet that now we might see a little bit more of Blake Corum if this is the route they're going to take, because if they're going to be more run heavy and they're going to want to protect Matthew Stafford, if they can feel like they can win games like this, which no one probably thought they could because of how banged up their defense is, that might be something they're going to have to integrate in order to keep Kyren Williams a bit healthier until these wide receivers can come back. Because, I mean, if they can come in and beat the 49ers, then you never know.
And also just of note, it came out that Cooper Kupp will not play versus the Bears in week 4. Sean McVay has come out and already said that. So it will be the roulette wheel of the Whittington, the Tutu Atwells. So, yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, there's the Tua injury, which we already know is still like ever evolving. I mean, we're not sure how long he's going to be, out for. It's going to be at least 4 games. So that offense is in shambles. We've already touched base on that. And you know what? How are we going to, figure this out in Dynasty? Like, all this stuff is coming down the pipeline. How do we process this? I know we're in redraft season, but as a Dynasty manager, how do we process this stuff? Where do we go to find this stuff out?
Now, I know many of you are looking for a secret weapon for your Dynasty League, and I have it. It's called the Dynasty Dominator app. You go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's right there. It's $5 to download, and then every year it's $5 to load the next incoming class of rookies. You can add Superflex, add tight end premium. It's incredible because it allows you to look up players. It allows you to vote on whether a player is a buy, hold, or sell, and then see the market sentiment on that player. And you can compare their lifetime value rating from Player Profiler to their Dynasty ADP at the FFPC, all in the price lookup tool. And beyond that, we have a trade analyzer, so you'll never lose another Dynasty trade again. And in our settings, you can set this is a win now team, this is a rebuilding team, and then we let you compare players. Look at their metrics side by side, prospect metrics, NFL metrics. It's all there. It's $5 in the App Store. There's some add-ons for Superflex and to buy the upcoming rookie class. Every year, you're going to spend $5 on this thing, and it's going to be well worth it.
So every week we have Bullish and Bearish. Mike and I take an angle in each direction. Here we go.
0-1.
M.O. Come on.
0-1.
All right, we're so bullish and bearish, it just keeps going on. The song keeps playing. I am going to lead in on Bullish, and Mike has something very good for you on his segment. For me, Bullish, Malik Nabers is matchup proof. We talk about Nabers almost every week, but it's deserved. He is so impactful early on. Malik Nabers is showing he is matchup proof and that he should have been drafted in the same spot at the 1-2 turn as Marvin Harrison Jr. Malik Nabers is another one of those players, Mike, that you talked about first 3 rounds. Let's say it's Saquon Barkley, it's Kyren Williams, Malik Nabers in the first 3 rounds. You're getting one of the largest ROIs on your investment there. He, against what is thought to be a tough Cleveland Browns defense, went off for 8 receptions, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns on 12 targets. Nabers displayed excellent balance and control of his feet in the tight quarters. You just saw how he did that 360 and landed and had such elite body control on display. It was just beautiful to see. Recall in week 2, Nabers went for 10 receptions, 127 yards, a touchdown on 18 targets. So whether it's somewhere between 7 and 8 targets, 18, 12, I think you're looking at double-digit targets easily every single week for Malik Nabers, and he is matchup proof. Malik Nabers gets the national spotlight game at home versus the Cowboys on Thursday Night Football. Nabers has a higher standard for himself, and he genuinely aligns his self-interest in production with wanting to win. The guy is a baller, and if we had to do a draft right now, we would be talking about a first-round ADP for Malik Nabers. Now, Mike, what do you got?
I got Malik Nabers as my dynasty wide receiver 3. So that's how bullish I am on him. I mean, I have him just what I see, the offense there. It's just another level right now for Malik Nabers, and he's just an alpha. And that yak yards, everything. He's got everything. And, by the end of this season, I would not be surprised if we're talking about him as the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty headed into 2025. I had him as one of my bold takes was he was going to break the rookie reception record by 15 receptions for 120 altogether this year. So if that wouldn't put him as the dynasty number 1, I don't know what would. So I'm hoping to see that, and I'm right on there with that take. And I got to take that might ruffle a couple feathers here, but it's the reality that fantasy gamers are facing who invested a first-round pick in Breece Hall. They're in for a rough ride this season, despite his touchdown and involvement in the Jets' recent win over the Patriots. The emergence of rookie Braylon Allen is a serious concern. It's becoming increasingly clear that Hall may struggle to justify that first-round draft capital, making it tough for owners expecting elite production. In the Jets' latest game, Hall rushed for only 54 yards on 16 carries, averaging a mediocre 3.4 yards per carry. Meanwhile, Allen, 11 carries, outgained him by a yard, averaging an impressive 5 yards per attempt. This kind of efficiency suggests that Allen is not just a backup. He's a legitimate threat to Hall's workload, and that's a red flag for anyone banking on Hall as a top-tier running back. While Hall played the majority of the snaps, 52 out of 73, his touches were only marginally higher than Allen's 20-14 split indicates that even Hall is on the field. He isn't being utilized to the extent we'd expect from a first-round pick. A usage rate of 38.5% is simply not what fantasy gamers want to see from their star running back, especially when there's a rookie in the mix who's proven he can produce. Adding to the concern is the Jets' offensive scheme. If they face tougher defenses or find themselves in a negative game scripts, the reliance on the running game could diminish. With Aaron Rodgers showing flashes of his former self, there's a risk that Hall could be marginalized in favor of a more pass-happy approach. So for those that spent a coveted first-round pick on Hall, it's a tough pill to swallow. The reality is that the Jets seem committed to utilizing both Hall and Allen, and that could severely limit Hall's upside. With Allen's emergence, it's becoming increasingly difficult to view Hall as a first-round asset, making this season a challenging one for fantasy gamers.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And the concept, what people need to understand is versus the field right now, if you're on the field, you're doing a lot better. The attrition that goes on with, be it Puka Nacua, CMC, name a player, AJ Brown, who has been hurt, you are getting leverage versus the field. The breaking of fantasy football, though, you're not quite getting from Breece Hall. Now, a positive angle, this is just from Player Profiler, what Breece Hall has still managed to do, where he can still, he's not losing you. You can win. You may not win your league in the first 2 rounds, but the old adage is you can certainly lose it. You're not losing it with Breece Hall. You're just not getting that versus the field edge that you think you're getting. But here's some positive spin. Number 1 in targets. Number 2 in route participation, routes run, target share. Number 5 in snap share. Number 3 in weighted opportunities. So if you go just on the page, there is a smattering of good statistics that are out there. But to your point, Mike, there's going to be more opportunity share that's out there for Braylon Allen. Kind of like similarly to Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews, how you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube with how good Likely's been. You can't do that with Braylon Allen. And my God, the Dallas Cowboys, how do you not take Braylon Allen? So many other teams could have taken Braylon Allen. And then the Jets, of all teams, the Jets have had the worst luck in life. But man, can they just dump on other teams and be like, look what we've got. We've got a luxury here. And one guy who knows how to squeeze the most toothpaste out of the tube for 2 running backs is a guy like Aaron Rodgers. So that part is positive there. Now, Mike, I think it's time. We want to rip. The game is approaching. We're going to go into Coach's Corner and Chef's Tables. I'm going to rip the Commanders while you rip the Cincinnati Bengals. So we've got the Commanders tonight, my Coach's Corner, and I'm combining part of our combat zone. A player that I want to highlight, of course, it's in the thumbnail, is Jaden Daniels versus Joe Burrow. After 2 games, Jaden Daniels is QB6. We will tabulate after week 3 concludes, of course. Those games are outstanding, so we want to compare fairly, but up to 2 games, that's where Jaden Daniels is at. He is 3rd in expected fantasy points per game with 20.8, 5th in best ball points added at 12.5, 8th in accuracy rating, 10th in true completion percentage at 75.5%. Week 1, Daniels had 28.1 fantasy points, which had him at QB3. And week 2, it was 18th with 13.4. I expect that to regress back, not just to the middle, but higher towards that 28 fantasy point total. blame has gone around towards offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury. However, Jaden Daniels is prone to taking off and running, which we like for fantasy football. When he does pass, Jaden Daniels tends to funnel underneath to Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler, and safety blanket, Zach Ertz. So notice as you're watching, is the pattern still part of that horizontal raid where it's a dink and dunk underneath? I would just attribute that to Jaden Daniels is still in his comfort zone. So I'm very curious to watch that tonight. Noticeably missing from the party has been, speaking of vertical and horizontal, Terry McLaurin. If Terry McLaurin can't get right in week 3 against the Bengals, I'm not sure when he'll get it together. I also felt that way last week in a great matchup versus the Giants. So after 2 weeks, Terry McLaurin, he's the number 1 wide receiver on the team. He is wide receiver 64 overall. 100% route participation has just been cardio. 8 receptions for 39 yards is a line that Malik Nabers could put up in a quarter. McLaurin's catchable target rate is 32nd in the league at 75%. His ADOT is 56 in the league at 9.3. So again, horizontal raid. And McLaurin is 30th in target share at 22.6%. My deduction is that while Terry McLaurin is getting a good target share, the quality and depth via play design and the lack of Jaden Daniels really slinging it deep is holding McLaurin back. So there's part of it in we're bullish and we love Jaden Daniels. But from a developmental on a football side, Jaden Daniels has a lot to improve on. For some good news, Brian Robinson, he is providing tremendous value. Brian Robinson is RB14. At RB, he is 4th in breakaway runs, 8th in breakaway run rate, 11th in receiving yards with 52, 8th in rushing yards with 173. So we talked in the offseason about Brian Robinson developing, much like David Montgomery, treating his training and as a professional, developing his craft. We're seeing that with Brian Robinson Jr., and it's been a lot of fun. And you're going to continue to see Brian Robinson Jr., somebody who was in the 10th round, continually pay off at his ADP. What do you got for us on the Bengals side, Mike?
Yeah, well, the Bengals are in a situation where they need a win, and they need one badly at this stage. So hopefully they can get one tonight. That division is tight. The couple of teams, looking not great in the Browns. The Ravens just got a win here. So the Bengals need to win tonight in order to get back into the race here, with the Steelers looking like the front runner here, 3-0. So they got to do something to get back in the race here. And it looks like the Commanders might be the team to do it in. They need to get Burrow back into action here. I think they used a lot of tight ends last week against the Chiefs, who give up a lot of fantasy points to tight ends. So I think we should see this game be the Jamar Chase game. I'm hoping to see that. I'm bullish on him this week. He's the top receiver, and he's capable of breaking off big plays at any moment. Despite the struggles of the offensive line, Burrow's ability to target Chase in one-on-one situations could result in significant yardage. Chase is likely to draw attention from Washington's defense, but if Burrow can evade the pass rush, look for Chase to put up impressive numbers. The Washington Commanders defense is very soft. They give up the most fantasy points to wide receivers. So I'm just looking for this team to really get back on track this week. I'm not super bullish on T. Higgins because he's coming off that injury, and they might, put him slower into the situation. And if you're a T. Higgins manager, yes, you're going to have to start him. But at the same time, we know the drama that has been the T. Higgins situation. He might not even play at all tonight. Like he could be dressing and play 4 snaps for all we know. And that's a risk that you're going to have to take if you're in the situation this week. Chase Brown, the running back, he was a deep sleeper headed into this year, and he just hasn't lived up to the expectations. He's not doing what he needed to do in pass protection. So the coaching staff hasn't been very good at putting him on the field in situations that mean the most. They're going to give it to the situation, a guy that can handle those situations, and a guy that I'm actually pretty bullish on tonight, and that's Zach Moss. I think he's a good play for fantasy gamers. Although he does play the Commanders this week, Moss has shown he can be effective in the run game, which ranks, the Commanders, they rank 7th in the league. But honestly, I think at this stage, I think the game is going to be, not so close. I think they're going to maybe have to run the clock down a little bit, and I think he's going to be in the opportunity to score. And I think he's going to be put in a position like Joe Mixon is, and I think they're fading Chase Brown a bit, but I could be wrong on that situation. But this situation here moving forward for the Bengals looks like a promising one this game. I think this is the get right game. The Bengals face adversity, and they're in a critical matchup against the Commanders. There are several offensive, considering Burrow and Chase are strong starts, while Higgins, like I said, he's going to start off slow, but he can be an asset. And I just think that, as far as our combat zone goes, I just think that this is the game. If there's any game to get Burrow back on track, he's going to have his weapons back full force here with Higgins and Chase kind of having back at it. And they're playing that weak Washington defense. I think all eyes are going to be on Joe Burrow, despite being, starting off to like a little bit of a slower start. He's in a prime position, and I think he's going to outscore Jaden Daniels this week. He's got a proven track record of producing big numbers, especially when he's able to establish a rhythm early in the game. And I think he's positioned well to do that. Despite that shaky start, Burrow's talent is undeniable, and he's facing the Commanders' defense that has been inconsistent in the secondary. They allow an average of 27.5 points per game, suggesting there's a lot of opportunity to exploit. So if Burrow's protection is there, he can do great things, and I'm expecting that tonight there, Jeremiah. What do you got to say about that?
Hey, I'm with you. I've got bets laid out for Jamar Chase tonight just to go off. You've got a bullish sentiment on Joe Burrow. While Joe Burrow hasn't really returned as much as you would like, and of course the Bengals as a whole, you got to think tonight is a get right no matter what. Now, look, if people aren't happy, T. Higgins isn't happy, Jamar Chase isn't happy, there's just bad vibes and juju that is over the Cincinnati Bengals right now. But as far as tonight, if tonight isn't right, then nothing's right, because the Commanders, they should absolutely torch. So, yeah, I'm with you. And I love the Commanders to get right. I'm sitting here, okay, McLaurin's got to get right. Jaden's going to do his thing where he elevates back up from a pedestrian output last week. So I see it on both sides. It's get right for both matchups. And I'm absolutely with you. It's an easy matchup layup for the Bengals. And then for the Commanders, it's a get right spot. Otherwise, they've got some fracturing going on that is just evident of just a longer term problem that will probably have to be solved towards next season. Now, for fantasy, though, I expect both teams to go off. Now, with that said, Mike, just sentiment on your way out. How do you feel heading into the exit of week 3 into week 4? What do you got for us?
Well, I got, time fantasy man ebbs and flows of the game. Okay, weeks 1 and 2 showed us a little bit. 3 and 4 are going to show us even more of what really is going to be happening down the stretch here. So after week 4, we're going to, start creating these patterns. I kind of go about the fantasy season in quarters, and we're almost at the end of the first quarter here, where a lot of information is brought to us. Now we're going to start seeing some patterns evolving. And after week 4 is when we're going to have to really assess our lineups. If you're sitting at 1 and 3, it's time to make a move. If you're sitting at 2 and 2, you might want to hold still. You might need to make a small move, but this is, a pivotal week coming up here. So assess your lineup, make sure that you're listening in to Player Profiler every night, whether it's our news channel to get the latest and breaking on the injury updates, but also on our main channel where you're going to have the best shows out there showing you all the right moves to make in your lineup. So be patient, get ready for a busy week of football. And yeah, man, what do you got for us, Jer?
Hey, I couldn't have said it better. Last word is the best word by you, Mike. Find Mike at FFCanuck99. We will see you in week 4, and let's hope that quarterback play improves. We will see you next week.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.